Belleville Sens podcast is back. Season 2, episode 19 this week on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network. Senators did everything they needed to do to keep pace in the North Division's playoff race with a couple of wins on home ice last weekend. Friday, a shutout against the Springfield Thunderbirds, and Saturday, a country night victory over the division-leading Syracuse Crunch. We're going to break those games down for you. You'll hear from the man of the hour on Friday. That's Kevin Mandolese, who picked up his first career AHL shutout. As always, we will recap who is leading the various scat categories for the club heading into the new week, and of course the playoff picture breakdown, as well as we get you set for a massive week of road games. Senators head to Toronto on Wednesday, and then Rochester on Friday and Saturday for their final long road trip of the season. David Foote, Brock Ormond here again this week. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show wherever you're listening so you don't miss an episode. Toss us a rating and a review as well. That would be much appreciated. A shorter homestand, Brock, than the last time the Sens were at CAA Arena for an extended period, but much better results. They go from 0-3 a couple weeks ago to a rather impressive 2-0 on home ice. The 3-0 shutout against Springfield Friday, and then the 5-2 win over Syracuse on Saturday. And these were a couple of the better performances, certainly of late, but maybe all year, that we've seen from this group as a whole.
Yeah, things can turn around pretty quickly in the American Hockey League, and the Belleville Sens definitely took a lot of the wind out of a team like Springfield Sales, who's trying to chase down a spot in the playoffs in the Atlantic Division. And then you got the Syracuse Crunch team that Belleville just seems to have had their number all season. I don't know what is in the water in these games when these two teams meet, but the Belleville Sens 6 times out of 7 that they've beaten Syracuse, and they got another chance to take a victory from them on Wednesday the 17th of April, the next time Belleville's at home. So it's one of those things where you just find a team that you beat. Last year, like we said during the broadcast on Saturday, was Laval. They beat the Rocket 9 times out of 12 last season. This season at Syracuse, and the game on Saturday was particularly impressive because the Crunch were heating up a bit. They got an early goal in the second. Belleville came back and got 2, and then Syracuse scores a late goal. And sometimes, especially when it's on the power play, those kinds of things can really be backbreakers and momentum shifters. But the Belleville Sens kept it on the rails. They ended up getting an early goal thanks to a beautiful end-to-end effort by Lassie Thompson, and then iced it with an empty netter. So that's the thing where Belleville's showcasing more advanced maturity now than they were at the start of the year, where sometimes those games can tend to turn on their heads. Belleville managed to turn it back around or keep it on the straight and narrow for themselves. And, of course, what can you say about Kevin Mandolese from the Friday night? 3-0 shutout, 25 saves, and probably Belleville's stingiest defensive efforts. It was not easy, to say the least, for Springfield to get offensive chances. There was a lot of quicksand they were skating through, and the Thunderbirds were a team that have been struggling a bit and ended up losing 3 games through Toronto, Belleville, and Laval last week and weekend. So Belleville, again, played probably about as stingy as they did all season, like you said, and they end up taking it down, and all they needed was just a nice, tidy little 1 goal a period to keep themselves afloat over a Springfield team that was desperate to try and keep themselves in that playoff hunt and improve their standings. So 2 very impressive efforts and 2 pretty good crowds behind them as well. There was quite a bit of noise like we were expecting or hoping for, and all at the end of the day, Belleville found a way to pull it out.
Yeah, they certainly did, and they do it without the likes of Yuri Smekel and Boko Imama, who were both recalled to Ottawa over the course of the week. Now, those aren't big-time goal scorers, but as we've talked about all season long, the Senators are missing big-time goal scorers in the likes of Angus Crookshank, who's up in Ottawa and hurt, Matt Highmore, who is up in Ottawa and hurt, of course, Roby Yarvetti, who is done for the season. Tyler Boucher was hoped to be an offensive threat once he got settled in, but he's done for the season as well. So we're going back to that, comment from Dave Bell a week or 2 ago about how guys are in the wrong seat on the bus, where basically he said we've got a lot of really good players whose jobs are not to score goals. And now a few of the guys are starting to kind of move into that more of a goal-scoring role, something that perhaps they were, more akin to in junior hockey. And a couple of those guys I'm looking at had really big weekends in Zack Ostapchuk and Garrett Pilon. Just really driving the bus. Forget what seat they're in. They were in the driver's seat for Belleville last weekend. A goal and an assist each for Ostapchuk in both those games. Garrett Pilon with 2 goals in the Syracuse game on Saturday night. So these are a couple of guys who are kind of looking at themselves and going, all right, well, somebody's got to help pick up the pace offensively. It might as well be me, and they're getting out there and doing that.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's guys with veteran experience helping out too with Pilon, having been a Calder Cup champion, and they're being complemented nicely by the young guys like Ostapchuk, playing like a veteran of about 3 or 4 years in professional hockey. When it's hard to believe he's only 20, and it's easy to forget. But he's again taking the bull by the horns, like you said, and running with it because of the fact that he needs to step in and be an offensive contributor because Dave Bell and the coaching staff require it of him. And the key thing with him is he's fitting into that role very well because he was like that in junior, but he also can show a bit of a physical side too. And he's dropped the gloves a couple times this year. Didn't have to do it on the weekend, but was tough. Played along the boards and in the corners and doing whatever it takes to win. And you alluded to Boko Imama, David, and the fact that, they lost him for Saturday's game, but he was a key piece of that Friday game. He didn't score any points, but the big thing with him was he got in a fight about 2.5 minutes in with Sam Bitton of Springfield and pretty much dominated. He decisively won that fight, and it was because of that the Belleville Sens felt galvanized, if you will, to go out and beat that Springfield Thunderbirds team, who is very much in the same boat as Belleville, and that's trying to scrape from the bottom of the division standings to get into the postseason picture. It was thanks to him that the Belleville Sens had that win, and it seemed like it set the tone for the whole weekend. And it's sometimes you don't have to always fight to make a point, but Belleville certainly did that. But it's guys like you said, Pilon, Ostapchuk, and Tyler Clevin too, scoring the go ahead and game-winning goal in the first period on Friday night. He certainly has turned a new leaf. Not that he was ever looked out of place when he was here originally, but he's been to Ottawa at least once or twice now, and he's come back both times feeling very confident in himself, and it showed.
Yeah, absolutely. Should shout out for Matt Sogard as well. Picked up his 15th win of the season on Saturday night against Syracuse. He hadn't played in a few weeks, so good to see Sogi back. And again, Kevin Mandolese will be our feature guest. We'll hear from him coming up in our next segment after his first career AHL shutout on Friday against the Springfield Thunderbirds. Did want to give you a little bit of extra context just in, what the 2 wins mean for this team moving forward, kind of where the mindset of this group is at heading into, the most important week of the season, to say the least. So we wanted to play the post-game scrums with Garrett Pilon.and Zack Ostapchuk for you because they've got some really good insight just exactly into that, into the locker room, into how the guys are feeling, and into what's made them successful. So let's start with Garrett Pilon. Here he is after the game on Saturday night against the Syracuse Crunch. Knocks off the top team in the division. How did you feel about the game overall tonight, first of all?
Super good. I think our team played really great. I mean, coming from the back end all the way up to the forwards, I think, it was a really well-rounded 60 minutes for our group.
Yeah, and seemed to follow up last night's victory kind of the same way. You guys were pretty dominant yesterday, and you find the net 5 times here tonight. What worked so well for you guys this evening?
Yeah, I think, guys are getting comfortable with each other. We had some new guys, obviously, that came in and have fit in, I think, pretty well and are starting to, do some good things and get some good chances, which is obviously, builds confidence in our group. How
about for yourself? You're obviously having an outstanding year, hitting some career highs. You're scoring twice a game fairly frequently. What's been going so well for you?
Yeah, I just think I'm trying to do all the little things right. I think, lead by example for the most part. But, yeah, I think, I don't know, a lot of that is also, relying on my line mates. I think they're doing a great job, Chucky and Rhino, lately. I think we've found some chemistry, so that's obviously helped quite a bit as well.
You knock off the top team in the division. What does that mean to this group in terms of confidence, attitude, that sort of thing, when you look at the standings and know you're in a bit of a dogfight here to be able to knock off the best team in the division by points anyway?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I mean, obviously, I think we've known that we're a good hockey club ever since the start of the year, and I think it's just, finding our stride, and obviously, being able to take down the top team in our division is a huge confidence boost for us. But, we're looking forward. There's obviously some big divisional matches here coming up that we need to prepare for, and I think that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah, how do you kind of balance, not focusing too much on the standings and executing what you guys have to do at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's still a good motivator. I think you need to know where you're at, not to get too, I guess, consumed by it. But at the same time, you got to know that there's a ton of importance here in this stretch, and we're going to be playing some good hockey.
And how do you carry this momentum into next week? You've got a couple of days of practice, and then, like you said, 3 big ones against more divisional rivals.
Yeah, obviously, keep playing our game, keep building some chemistry with everyone, and that's about it.
So there's Garrett Pilon, again, one of the top scorers for the Senators this year, smashing career highs in most categories, and again, another 2-goal game for him on Saturday. We'll hear from Zack Ostapchuk in a second, but a lot of quality points there from Garrett Pilon, talking about this group starting to get more comfortable together and himself trying to lead by example, and that's exactly what we were talking about here just before that interview is he's one of those guys that was brought in to provide some leadership, to bring that experience from a Calder Cup championship last season, and certainly, throughout the year he has been, but maybe more so now in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and you can tell that he's a guy that has a lot of confidence coming off of that Calder Cup championship with Hershey last year. Comes to Belleville, getting a bit more of a chance to succeed offensively, if you will, and it has paid off, really. He only had, I think, about 7 or so goals last year, and then he comes in, and it seems like every game he's making an impact, which is so key, and that's exactly what you want to see for a guy that has been around for a while now. He's 26, but it feels like he's been around for a lot longer. He's got that NHL lineage, like we said about his dad, Rich. Haven't played for years, and he takes a little bit of everything from everybody's game. His dad's physicality, he has a little bit of an offensive touch as well, and he can go into the corners and fight along the boards in front of the net. He's not afraid to do that and help out his teammates, and he's a key player to this Belleville Sens team because he can play anywhere in the lineup that's asked of him by Coach Dave Bell, and he usually succeeds. So he's going to be a key piece to this Belleville team moving forward, and if the Sens can squeeze into the postseason, look for him to be a valuable contributor going down the stretch drive.
And without talking to Sens management, I would think that Garrett Pilon is one of the guys that's on the radar to perhaps come back again for another season. Quick note on the contract front, there's only about 6 or 7 players that have deals with the Senators for next year. So Ryan Bonus and Sean McCauley and Steve Staios, obviously, and company will have some work to do in terms of replenishing or firming up the AHL club roster moving into next season. But again, Garrett Pilon certainly drawing some attention, I would imagine, in terms of looking ahead to next season, because that's the other thing with this part of the year, Brock, is guys elevate their games. Yeah, because we're in a playoff fight, we're trying to get into the postseason, but also because a lot of guys, not just here in Belleville, but across the league, are playing for jobs next year as well. You got to get noticed this time of year if you want to find yourself a home next season. So that's something else to keep in mind. One guy who knows he'll be here next season is Zack Ostapchuk. That is, of course, unless he lands in Ottawa, which, based on the way his rookie AHL campaign has gone, I don't think I'd be too surprised.
No, not at all. Ostapchuk has put himself in that conversation. He's already got his NHL debut out of the way this season and did not look out of place up in Ottawa, with Jacques Martin giving him particular praise for playing a very sound, responsible game at both ends of the puck, and did the job of shadowing Sidney Crosby, that legendary captain of the Pittsburgh Penguins, and easily a future Hall of Famer, and he goes in there, steals the puck away, and doesn't get an assist on an overtime winning goal, but he was the cause of the turnover for Pittsburgh that led to the eventual game winner. So not only is he a good goal scorer, a pugnacious guy at times when he's out there, he can also play very sound defensive hockey, and two-way play is kind of what you need to do if you want to make it to professional hockey, whether it's the AHL, the NHL, because if you don't play on both sides of the puck, chances are your stint's not going to last very long, and Ostapchuk did that. If
you want to hear the full interview with Zack Ostapchuk about his NHL debut, go on back to episode 17 of Season 2 of the Belleville Sens podcast. We've got a full chat with him on that and his story and background, etc. But here's just a little taste of Zack Ostapchuk from after the game Saturday. Again, back-to-back games with a goal and an assist for Chucky, and really kind of rounding into form and embracing the opportunity to try to lead this offense with some big pieces out on the playoff push in his rookie season. So here's Sens forward Zack Ostapchuk after Saturday's game against Syracuse. Sens forward Zack Ostapchuk, back-to-back 2-point nights, and this team seems to be rolling pretty well right now. How did you feel about the game overall first?
Yeah, I thought tonight we played really good. We knew what we had to do against these guys. We needed to play them hard, and they were going to come at us all night, and I think we handled it really well. So, yeah, I liked our game. Yeah, well, what were some of the areas that you thought your team maybe excelled at tonight that led to the win? Yeah, I thought we were pretty good along the boards, which is really important against these guys, and I thought we managed the puck for the most part. And I mean, against these guys, they kind of play the same as us, so it's just who could do it better, and I think we did. Big night for your line, a big weekend really for you and Peels and Rhino. What's working so well between the three of you? You guys seem to be developing some pretty good chemistry. Yeah, I think we kind of just know where each other is going to be right now, and we talk a lot on the bench, and I think that's huge. It's like we have a good communication, and I like playing with them. It's your rookie season in the American Hockey League. The playoff race has been like this for this team every year. How have you found this kind of experience of being in a bit of a dogfight for that last playoff spot? Yeah, it's fun. I mean, every game's like a playoff game. These probably last 15 of the season, so I mean, it's fun times, and we need to string together some wins, and it's fun to play that kind of hockey where it's desperation every night. We asked Garrett as well, just what a win over the top team in the division means for this group in terms of attitude and confidence moving forward, just to kind of remind yourselves that you can compete with and beat any team in this division. Yeah, I think it's good. I think this is a team we might see in the playoffs. So, I mean, every team that's ahead of us, we're kind of chasing them, and we want to beat those guys that are ahead of us in the standings, and I think we've done a good job. And just looking ahead to next week, how do you guys carry the momentum of this 3-game win streak into Toronto and Rochester with a couple more really big games? Yeah, I think we just can't change our mindset. I think I've liked our mindset the last 2 weeks, a little desperate, and we got some fire in us, so I think we just got to keep that going.
So there's Zack Ostapchuk, and a confident kid, feeling pretty good about his game right now. And really, I think the Senators as a whole are feeling pretty good about their game right now. And it's just a full 180 from where we were a couple weeks ago after that homestand. We talked after the split in Laval last weekend about the impact that split could make, and it really seems to have paid off the right way for the Senators because they've been scoring a fair bit after kind of breaking the dam a little bit, as Dave Bell said in Laval the other week. Yeah, and having those 2 games there, the split, losing in the first night, winning in the second, turning it around, like we said, things can change in a hurry here in the American Hockey League, and it's so interesting to see how, it wasn't necessarily a skies falling attitude for the Sens. They never thought of it that way. Because, again, they're professionals and they know that the ebbs and flows of the season can come in waves. But the 3 losses in a row at home a couple weekends ago definitely didn't inspire too much confidence. Then they lose to Laval in the first game. But that big game, that 5-goal performance against Laval on Saturday was the 30th of March, was the big difference maker to give Belleville a chance to really roll through and come back home with some confidence. They take 2 wins, and now all of a sudden they're on a 3-game winning streak and easily could win likely all the games, but at least 2 out of 3 against Toronto and Rochester, 2 teams that are also trying to jockey for position. So it'll be very interesting to see what Belleville can do here against especially a Toronto team that's always been a hard team to get out here. They have every right to feel confident about themselves going into it. They just can't afford to get away from their game and start maybe taking necessary penalties or start getting broken down defensively, and they'll be good. Yeah, we will break down those upcoming games against Toronto and Rochester in a little bit. When we come back from the break, we'll chat goaltending and hear from Kevin Mandolese after his first career AHL shutout last Friday. But very quickly first, a look at the standings. Senators are 6th in the North Division, but tied on points with the Laval Rocket. Syracuse in first, Rochester behind them by a point, Cleveland behind Rochester by just a point. Toronto and Laval have the 4th and 5th seeds, and then it's Belleville and the Utica Comets who have been up and down. No change in the stat category leaders. Angus Crookshanks, 46 points and 24 goals, still tops. Garrett Pilon adds another assist for his 28th. No change in the power play goals or shorthanded goals. Tyler Clevin remains the most steadfast defender at a +16 rating. Matt Sogard, the best goaltender, with a .250 goals against and a .915 save percentage. We mentioned a couple of those transactions. Smekel back up to Ottawa. Rourke Chartier is here in Belleville, though he didn't factor in a whole lot on the weekend. Tyler Clevin is back as well, and of course, Boku Imama up in the NHL too. We'll talk to Kevin Mandolese when we come back to Season 2, Episode 19 of the Belleville Sens podcast.
Stay ahead of the game. Plan now for the next season of Belleville Senators hockey. 2024-25 renewals and new seat packages are on sale now. Visit BellevilleSens.com to receive information on pricing and learn about the exclusive benefits season seat members receive. Because you want to be in on all Sens hockey action. Plan to get in the game. More on season seat memberships at BellevilleSens.com. Go Sens, go!
Season 2, Episode 19 of the Belleville Sens podcast. Continuing on, a handful of games left in the season. 1 at Toronto, 2 at Rochester, 1 at home against Syracuse, 1 at home against Laval, and then the season finale on April 20th at Laval, when the Senators and Rocket will finish their marathon 12-game season series. More on those games and more specifically the games this weekend against Toronto and Rochester to come in our final segment later on here on Episode 19 with myself, David Foote, and Brock Ormond. But we'll talk a little goaltending in this segment. It's an area that has really been a highlight for the Senators throughout the course of the season, and a personal, individual highlight for Kevin Mandolese on Friday night against the Springfield Thunderbirds, earning his first career AHL shutout with a 25-save performance. The Montreal native had left the game in Toronto, the school day game, back in early March, and was off for like 3 weeks or so. Comes back in Laval a couple weeks ago, puts up a pretty good performance, and now he's got wins in 4 of his last 5, and a guy who's maybe been a little bit streaky at times, if you want to use the term, but over his time with the Belleville Sens, for the most part, he's been steady and well-deserving of that first career AHL shutout that he was able to earn himself on Friday night.
Yeah, absolutely, and a 25-save effort, too, and a couple of those saves were pretty good in terms of giving his team some of that momentum they were craving through much of that game, and early on, Springfield came out hard in the first couple of minutes, put a couple shots on, and then that fight from Boku Imama turned things around in Belleville's favor. But Kevin Mandolese needed to be solid, and he was through much of that game on Friday night, and he was one of the big reasons why the Sens were able to get that victory and bank 2 more key points. So, yeah, you could tell he's a confident guy, and as a former Quebec leaguer with the Cape Breton Eagles, he knows good goaltending for sure, and the QMJHL has been a factory for goaltenders over the years. Patrick Waugh, Martin Brodeur, Marc-Andre Fleury, and not trying to put too much pressure on his shoulders to say he's going to be quite like that, but he certainly is good enough for the Belleville Sens to give them a chance to win every time he's in there, much like Matt Sogard, much like Levi Merilainen, and even Mark Sinclair, too. He's played the lion's share of the games, or at least the majority of the games in Allen in the ECHL, and he was pretty solid in spot duty for Belleville earlier this year. So, goaltending, you're right, has not been at all an issue. David Bell has not had one negative thing to say about those 3 main guys that have been here for Belleville all season, and really in the Sens' entire history since they came to Belleville, it's always been outstanding to see guys just right up through the ranks being so impressive in terms of goaltending, and whatever is being taught to these guys, it's working, because you got a guy like Philip Gustafson that was here in Belleville, went to Ottawa to play for the Sens, and now he's in Minnesota with the Wild in the NHL. He's got an NHL job splitting time with Marc-Andre Fleury, so that's the kind of thing that's so impressive, and goaltending coaches like Justin Peters and Tyson Teachman have been outstanding for these guys' development.
We will talk to Kevin Mandolese in just a moment, and we will ask him about the goaltending coach change, something that he's never experienced in his career, and that frankly is pretty new for us here, even at the AHL level, as Kevin Mandolese will be our featured guest this week. We caught up with him after the game on Friday. But maybe just a quick thought as well on Matt Sogard and Levi Merilainen. These also are two obviously high-caliber goaltenders. I think a lot of people are expecting Sogard to be finished with his AHL time at the end of this season, and that's going to lead to some pretty good opportunity for Levi Merilainen, who we know will be here next year, and then Kevin Mandolese as well, should he be back, because he's one of those players, like we talked about earlier on, that's not under contract with the Senators for next season. So the stable is deep. There's, you got Kevin Riddler coming up as well from the draft class and more. There's always going to be goaltenders on the way up, but right now the organization's in pretty good hands with those three guys.
Yeah, for sure. And, with Tyson Teichmann next year getting a whole year of being a goalie coach with the Belleville Sens. Coming in midway through after Justin Peters going to Ottawa, that's not easy. And that kind of can throw some people off, but Kevin Mandolese hasn't been too bothered by it, and absolutely, he's playing for a contract next year, whether it's with the Ottawa Sens organization, whether it's with somebody else. Hopefully we'll see him back next year, but he certainly deserves to give himself a nice look, and people will be tuning in to him to see what he can do because he has gotten some games in the NHL as well. So Mandolese and Merilainen, two guys that really liked seeing full years out of this season, especially Merilainen, too, because of the fact that he only got that quick stint last year, and certainly impressed. And that's the thing with him is he's going to be one of those guys that probably will have to take a lion's share of the load next season, especially if Sogard and Mandolese don't return. And in that case, then he'll be the guy to look to for Dave Bell. Every time they need a win, he's going to be the guy.
Well, let's hear from the Montreal native, Kevin Mandolese, a guy who has been with the Belleville Senators now for 4 seasons. If I'm counting, 1, 2, 3, this is his 4th season. He's played more games this year at the AHL level than he ever has. He has a pretty good record as well at 10-8-2, and that shutout that we've been talking about, and his numbers have been outstanding. So here's Kevin Mandolese on the Belleville Sens podcast, and then we'll return and start to get you set for 3 massive games coming up this week on the road. Sens goaltender Kevin Mandolese after his first career AHL shutout. A little bit of a long time coming. How's it feel to get that one finally out of the way?
Yeah, it definitely feels good. Now that it's out of my mind, I can just go on and play games without having that on my mind. So no, obviously just happy that we're able to get the 2 points because we're in the playoff push and every game is important right now.
Yeah, how big of a win is that for this team? What does it mean to the guys in the room to pick up that win, and you get a little bit of help out of town tonight as well?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely helps. But like I said, tomorrow we'll have another 2 points, and we need to grab every 2 points we can get or every point we can get. So it definitely helps with the morale and the confidence. But tomorrow's a new day.
What did you like from your guys in front of you tonight in terms of what led to the victory? It seemed like you had the game in control basically the whole way.
Yeah, I think from the D standpoint and forward standpoint defensively, we know how they were going to put guys trying to blow the zone and try to create some rushes, and I think we played a very sound defensive game and had some good blocks. I remember a few from Peter and Lars, so definitely helped me a lot, and the good tracks from the forwards. So from then on, we were able to sustain some good ozone time and create some goals and some dirty goals, but that's our identity, and that's how we scored in playoffs too, right? So no, it was a good playoffs game, that's for sure.
As a goaltender, I'm curious about the answer to this, but early in the game, Springfield got a couple of shots early. 2.5 minutes in, Boko drops the gloves. It really seemed to change the momentum. Do you feel that in the crease, or is that something that more just kind of trickles through the rest of the bench? How big of an impact was that fight?
When you have a guy like Boko dropping the gloves, it's definitely a booster for the team and the bench, and even for the fans, right? So definitely helps and get the boys going, and was changed the whole game. So got us going, and didn't look back from that.
And looking ahead to tomorrow, how do you guys build off of these last couple of wins and try to carry some momentum in against the Crunch?
Just stick with our process. I think when we do that and have a good track backs and a good F3, I think we don't feed their rush like the Crunch likes to do. And so yeah, I think if we just trust our process and our plan, we'll be just fine.
I wanted to get a couple questions in just about your season overall as well. It's been kind of a unique year. You had the injury. There's been basically 3 goalies in and out throughout the course of the season. How has the year kind of been for you from front to back so far?
Definitely unique, but like I said, that's out of my control. I think the past 3-4 years, there's always 2-3 goalies here. So, it's you kind of learn to deal with that. I think I'm doing a better job this year than the past years to just kind of stay ready, try to control what I can control, and whoever plays and what the decisions are for who's going to play, that's out of my control. And if I'm not the guy that gets the start, well, I'll just be there to support my teammate and work hard and be ready for anything that happens.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's there's obviously battles and fights, if you want to put it that way, in between goaltenders for positioning, but that part of being a good teammate is so important as well.
Yeah, obviously. Been with Mads for 4 years now, and we've became close, good friendship. And Levy, I've known him for a few years as well throughout camps, and so they're all good guys. You want them to succeed. They're all good goalies. We're all good goalies. So at the end of the day, the only way you will be able to succeed is by being a good teammate and focusing on what you can do. And ultimately, yes, we want to develop, but we want to win and we want to get into playoffs, and yeah.
A couple more questions here for Sens goaltender Kevin Mandolese. You went through a goaltending coach change this year after a couple of years with Justin Peters. What was that like? Kind of how have you found the adjustment to a much younger guy like Tyson Teichmann?
Yeah, it's definitely a first in my career mid-season. I think when we didn't have any goalie coach, that was the hardest part. Had to come up with drills and all that, but and didn't really have anyone to talk to. But the 3 years or 3.5 years with Petey has been great. Helped me tons, and now with Tyson, obviously it's different approach, but helps me as well, and just been able to kind of keep me above, like my head above water. Kind of look at what I can control and what I can't, and just kind of, if I have anything on my mind, it's he's easy to talk to and kind of put things in perspective. And no, I definitely wouldn't be where I am without Petey or Tice, so that definitely helps.
Tyson's won a few games in this building as well in his time, so that's kind of a nice connection. Yeah. I guess lastly, obviously making the playoffs, going deep is the goal for this club, for yourself now the rest of the way. What kind of goals do you have for yourself, if any? What would you, consider a successful season for yourself come the end of the year?
To be honest, I just want to play my game as well as I can every day, and come in and every day get better and kind of work hard as if I haven't played in 2 months and trying to get a start. And but at the end of the day, I just want to win, help the team win, get in playoffs. I know it's cliche, but yes, the development league and all that. But right now we're in a dogfight and we want to win, and that's what my goal is right now, is to win. And if I'm not the one playing, I'll help the other goalies try to help the team win as well.
So there's Kevin Mandolese again. First career AHL shutout on Friday of last week against the Springfield Thunderbirds, 25 saves. And again, the mindset, we heard from him. We heard earlier in the show from Garrett Pilon.and Zack Ostapchuk. It doesn't really matter what position you play. The mindset right now is that the playoffs are already here, And as Mando said, and as we've referenced, it is a dogfight for seeding, and the Senators are in pretty good hands with 3 capable goaltenders that can help to get them over the line here as long as the offense keeps its pace.
Yeah, that's right, and there's only 1 point separating Belleville from being in the postseason and also from last in the division, and it doesn't really feel like you'd be last place because of how tight things are, and everybody thinks they got a chance, and the Belleville Sens certainly do. They're right in the middle of that race, and like you said, the dogfight, and Mandolese referenced it too, that it's so tough to get through and to win, and he has the right attitude about it. Yes, it's a developmental league, but if you can get into those situations where you can play those tough games down the stretch, then you can very much develop yourself as well. So it kind of goes hand in hand, and it's a win-win situation for everybody involved. Everybody develops when they play in these types of games and play that desperation hockey like Ostapchuk referenced earlier. So the Belleville Sens certainly have the opportunity to take away valuable points and lessons, and obviously they want to make it because they feel like they have as good of a shot as anybody. If they can squeeze in to those final group of teams, then they're going to have a chance to go pretty far because, like we've said, all it takes is just to get in, and then anything can happen in professional hockey. We've seen it time and time and again. The Belleville Sens have that opportunity staring at them right in the face these last few games.
They've beaten everybody in the division. They've handled the division leaders better than anybody else. So certainly anything can happen. But like Brock says, you just got to get in. The next 3 steps in doing that come up next week against Toronto and Rochester. We'll break those games down for you when we come back to episode 19 of Season 2 of the Belleville Sens podcast, only on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network. Back in just a moment.
The thrill of April. The playoff push is on. Regular season's almost over. The Belleville Senators need to hear you cheer.
Into the Belleville zone high slot. Look out! He just got clobbered by Tyler Klevin.
Friday, April 19th, 7 p.m. Your Sens play the Laval Rocket, AHL affiliate of the Montreal Canadiens, for Fan Appreciation Night. Presented by Bay of Quinte Regional Marketing Board. Be there for your Belleville Senators. See BellevilleSens.com.
Go, Sens, go!
Final segment, Season 2, Episode 19 of the Belleville Sens podcast. David Foote, Brock Ormond here. Hope you're enjoying the show so far. Don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you're listening. Episodes will be pretty frequent throughout the rest of the season. We'll maybe drop off a bit in the summer, but you don't want to miss an episode regardless. So subscribe now wherever you're listening. Toss us a rating and a review, and that'll help as we continue to build the show through the rest of this season, the off season, then into 2024-25, which is not that far away already, Brock.
No, I mean, the season can fly by when you're having fun, like we say, and we've been having a lot of fun this year. The Sens have given us a lot of reasons to be happy, and the fans a lot of reasons to cheer, too. Yeah,
absolutely, and again, a lot more reasons to cheer coming up next week when the Senators return home. Just 2 home games left. The 17th of April against the division-leading, well, as of right now, division-leading Syracuse Crunch, and then on April the 19th against the rival Laval Rocket. Tickets are available for both of those games at Ticketmaster.ca or BellevilleSens.com. You can also shoot an email off to tickets@BellevilleSens.com. Plenty of opportunity to bring your group out, your minor hockey team. You're celebrating the success of your season, much like we did with the Quinte Red Devils this week. Great spot to throw a team party here at CAA Arena and make some noise for the boys as they try to clinch a spot in the Calder Cup playoffs for just the second time in franchise history. I'm not going to say it's going to be a challenge per se, because Belleville, all things considered, in pretty good shape heading into the week. As I just pull up the AHL's playoff primer for this Tuesday morning. It's Tuesday, April 9th, the recording date of this show. So if you're listening a little bit later, this next section might be out of date. Probably will be, as Senators, of course, play on Wednesday night in Toronto. But as of this Tuesday morning, Syracuse in first at 82 points, Rochester in second at 81, Cleveland down to third with 80, and then you've got a 5-point gap between them and Toronto in fourth. 3 points between Toronto and Laval in 5th. That's the last playoff spot. Belleville and Laval are tied on points with 72. Brock mentioned earlier, Utica's just a point behind the Sens and the Rocket at 71. And Laval with the tiebreaker on Belleville. With regulation wins being the first tiebreaker, they have 2 more than the Senators do. Should note that Belleville has the second most regulation wins in the North Division this season, despite being down in 6th place at the moment. But if you look at the magic numbers, the Syracuse Crunch clinched. Rochester will clinch with their next point. Cleveland will clinch once they gain 2 points. And then you go, Toronto needs 7. Laval needs 13. Belleville needs 10. And Utica needs 14. So the Senators at this point have the third best odds to clinch a playoff spot next, with 10 points needed and 12 points to gain, not to mention the games in hand on Laval. They have 2, plus the head-to-head matchups with Laval, they have 2. So there alone is like 8 points you can grab, and it's going to be an interesting couple weeks. And the reason I won't use the word challenge, Brock, is because as long as the Senators continue to do what they've been doing for the last week and a half, they're going to be just fine. Their destiny is still more than in their own control right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right about the games in hand. That kind of evens out the fact that Laval does have the head-to-head tiebreaker over Belleville. So that's the thing that gives the Sens an advantage of sorts to be able to, if they can beat Toronto, beat Rochester at least once out of the 2 games they play this weekend, then that'll give them an advantage for sure, because Laval's a team that it started off a little bit slow against Belleville, but has come on in recent years, recent games, and it's the same thing with Toronto. Belleville actually has a winning record against the Marlies, even though Toronto has won the last 2 games. So the Sens have every opportunity to win. Coca-Cola Coliseum, never an easy building to play in, but they've got a lot on the line, so they can just go in there knowing that they have the ability to win any given night, and they can take confidence from the last couple of games here at home that they can win. They've won in a even bigger, tougher building in Laval. They've done that a couple times this season, so the Sens have every right to feel like they can pretty much win out with the way things are going, because they've beaten Toronto a bunch. They've beaten Rochester a few times as well. Syracuse, they've had their number all year. And then there's Laval, who Belleville has won against a few times and has quite a bit of opportunity against them, and have beaten them a few times earlier in the year, and certainly are not a team that is about to back down against the Laval Rocket group that can battle with the best of them. And even though Laval has had the upper hand recently outside of that latest Belleville win, Sens do have a chance, and especially playing that last game, fan appreciation game at home, should give them an extra little bit of confidence and an extra little boost to give their fans something that they've been cherishing, and that's birth in the Calder Cup postseason. And again, if they get in, anything can happen. So the Sens have every right to feel confident going into these 3 crucial games on the road.
Yeah, let's just look at the 2 opponents for those 3 games this week, starting with the rival Toronto Marlies. Belleville 5-3-0-1 against Toronto this season. They were extremely good against the Marlies to start the season series, but Toronto has won the last 2 games, including their last meeting, which was that school day game on March 6th, a 3-2 Marlies victory. Despite the veteran presence and, sure, the payroll and whatever else you want to say that the Toronto Marlies possess, the Belleville Senators still match up pretty good against the Marlies, but it's going to be physical, and it's likely going to be a more prototypical Battle of Ontario than maybe some of the games have been, given the stage in the season, given that Toronto is basically fighting to stay in that third-place spot and avoid the play-in round, and the Senators, as we've talked about all show long, are fighting to get into the playoffs. So it's going to have a little bit extra, I think, when we get into Toronto on Wednesday night, and the Senators are going to have to go back to what really worked against the Marlies earlier on in the season. Yeah, and that's keep using their speed and really taking out the middle of the ice against a Toronto team that has a lot of skill and a lot of talent. They got 420 goal scorers in Joseph Blandisi, who's terrorized Belleville every time he's played. Ex-Senator Logan Shaw, who actually leads the team in goals with 28. So great year for the former Belleville captain. And then another guy that
Belleville's seen quite a bit of the last couple of years. Alex Steves, 24 goals, and then Kiefer Bellows, 26. And Bellows, things didn't really work out for him in the Islanders system. He comes to Toronto and has been the Marlies, one of the key Marlies offensive pieces. And then guys like Kyle Clifford and Zach Solo and another former Sen, Max Lajoie, all guys that have been gritty and grinding against the Sens team this year. And then Ryan Teverberg with 4 goals against the Sens earlier this year. That's pretty much accounts for almost half of his 9 this season.
Yeah,
so,
I was going to say he hasn't done much since then, but that was a good day for him.
No, former Toronto Junior Canadian, former NCAA University of Connecticut standout, and shout out to them. They've had some good sporting news in recent days. So that Marlies team is always difficult to beat, and you know that going into whether it's the Coca-Cola Coliseum, whether it's Scotiabank Arena, the Marlies are always game for a good time. And Belleville, yeah, they won about 4 games in a row against them earlier this year, but things can change in a hurry, as we say. And the Marlies have come back with the last 2 victories in the last 2 games head-to-head. And, this one is going to be huge, the last one of the season series. And Belleville, if they can get a victory, then no doubt, I have a feeling they'll probably get in because of the way things are going. Confidence can be a funny thing, and momentum can be a big factor for a team that has been scrapping and clawing their whole way through. And in some ways, it's almost better to have these types of games. Not that any game's easy in the AHL, but when you go into a game like that, you know it's going to be difficult. You want it to be difficult. You don't want it to be a cakewalk because then you start getting overconfident and complacent. And Belleville's always been right in that mix the whole season. Should be a good one on Wednesday night. Looking forward to it.
We'll be on the air at 6:50 from Coca-Cola Coliseum. The Sens have already won the season series with Toronto, 5-3-0-1, but that doesn't really matter. They need the points, and more importantly, the head-to-head divisional win on Wednesday night in Toronto. They'll also need to get a little bit more output from Igor Sokolov, I think. He is the Sens' leading point getter against Toronto this year with 11 points over 9 games, but on a 3-game pointless drought heading into the week. Though we know a guy who can get hot at any time, so that would be my player to watch once we get into Toronto on Wednesday. Let's turn our attention to the Rochester Americans for Friday and Saturday. Senators 4-1-0-1 against the Amherst, so they'll win the season series against Rochester too. But this Rochester team has been playing extremely well of late. They've pushed themselves up into second place in the division. Again, they just need 1 point to clinch a playoff spot, and in a very different position than when we saw the Amherst a little while back. Always, again, another tough opponent, and another team that the Senators, like Toronto, are going to have to try to slow down through the middle of the ice, not let them use their speed to create some chances, because they have some pretty high-power offensive threats and some guys with a whole lot of skill.
Yeah, shifty, creative players like Mason Jobst and Yuri Kulik and plenty of others in the mix. Isak Rozan, Lucas Rushek, Michael Mersch, Brett Murray, 2 absolute beasts of humans. The former Carleton Place Canadian Brett Murray with 32 points this year. They're a team that, unlike Toronto, doesn't have an offense that pops out at you in terms of points. Got a couple 20-goal scorers in Kulik with 22 and Yops with 20. But again, they're playing good, solid team defense. And again, when you're tight and solid in the defensive end, and you got great goaltending like what Devin Levi and Dustin Tokarski have provided this year, then usually you're feeling better about yourself, and you know that you can take those offensive chances because you've got guys back there that can save you and bail you out. And certainly the Rochester Americans have been a team that's always been in that mix. Every year, it seems, they're a prototypical Class AHL organization. And, they usurped the Cleveland Monsters for second place, which was hard to believe considering, again, only 1 point difference. But the Cleveland Monsters were rolling at the start of the year. They were about 10 points ahead or 12 points ahead at one point. And then all of a sudden, things just started to break down for them. And now they're going to have to, at least as of right now, as of today, they're going to have to play in a 2-3 situation, so they won't get that first round, second round bye like they were hoping for and like they thought they were going to get at the start of the year. So, the Rochester Americans deserve full credit for that, and if they can get a point out of Belleville, at least one, then, like you said, they're going to earn a postseason spot once again. But, the Amherst, when I think of the AHL, I always think of that organization because they've been so outstanding every year. One of the longest-serving teams, and Belleville Sens want to try and put them out of it and take the crowd out of it at Blue Cross Arena because they're always very strong behind their team. And one of those teams that you always love to go in and play because of the fact that the atmosphere is always so great every single game.
Yeah, I was going to mention that next. Actually, the Senators are 9-3-1-0 over the last 5 years at Rochester, which is pretty good, but as you say, the Amerks defend home ice really well. When their fans are packing the War Memorial and making noise, it's an extremely dark and difficult place to play, and the Senators will have to be ready for that coming up on Friday and Saturday. Friday's game is a 7 p.m. start, so again, 6:50 pregame. Saturday's is a 5:05 start, so we'll be on the air at 4:50 on Saturday, so we can get home a little bit earlier, which will be nice. Hopefully with 6 points on the week for the Senators. The number really, I think, as Brock kind of said, is win 2 of 3 this week and no overtime, preferably. Don't hand out any extra points to any of these opponents. And, of course, the Senators need the regulation wins just in terms of the tiebreaker potentially against Laval. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the Sens do in this upcoming week. We will have all the action for you on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network and AHL TV if you are not thinking of making the trip. And if you are, do it. If you've got the time and the means on Wednesday, head to the big city in Toronto, Coca-Cola Coliseum. We'd love to see some Sens support there. And Rochester is not all that far away, about 3.5, 4 hours or so around the lake. And, again, we've seen in this building here at CAA Arena what the visiting support can do for visiting teams. So, hey, again, if you've got the time and the means, head out on the road and see the boys. If you don't have the time, you don't want to travel so far, the Sens are back at home on April 17th against the Syracuse Crunch, April 19th for Fan Appreciation Night against Laval, and tickets are available for both of those games at Ticketmaster.ca and BellevilleSens.com or by emailing tickets at BellevilleSens.com. We would love to see some more support for the guys. It's been growing, it's been building, but still seats left in the building. And if they're full, that's going to give these guys just one extra gear to try to clinch a spot in the Calder Cup playoffs. Final thoughts, Brock, maybe on expectations for the week before we go?
Well, Dave Bell, as he says, they got to get those 6 points, 3 wins. They know they're going to be facing some desperate opponents, as per usual around this time. But he feels like, and everybody feels like, the Sens can win multiple games and maybe even sweep all 3. With the way things are going, if they can do that, they'll get up to 6 straight victories, which is creeping towards that season high of 7 consecutive that they had back in late December, early January. So, and Belleville has had their success, like you said, winning 2 season series against Toronto and Rochester. They've definitely won the season series against Syracuse, the next team they play after that at home, and they've always had a good game against Laval, even though the results haven't been quite as much there as the other 3 teams. So, Toronto and Rochester, 2 teams that are good to have at your disposal or against you this season because the Sens want to have a good battle. And, definitely when it comes to strategy, just keep employing the same solid defensive structure that we saw on the weekend. Probably their 2 best defensive games, I would say, holding Springfield to 25 shots and then holding Syracuse to 19. So 40-some combined shots, 44 over 2 games. Not that bad at all, and they're getting their opportunities as well. So anytime you're good in the defensive end, that usually begets offense down at the other end, and guys like Garrett Pilon and Ostapchuk and Igor Sokolov should lead the way for the Sens. So expect a team to come out flying hard, and if they don't, then there's something wrong because this Sens team has been a workhorse group all year long. We don't expect it to be any different on the weekend.
They outscored opponents 8-2 over 2 games last weekend, and that's a formula for success, to say the least. They'll try to replicate that in Toronto on Wednesday, Rochester on Friday and Saturday. Again, 6:50 p.m. for Wednesday, Friday, 4:50 pregame for Saturday in Rochester on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network and AHL TV. We hope you'll join us for those games. Speaking of Garrett Pilon, we'll leave you with his highlight of the week, his self alley-oop. in the game against the Syracuse Crunch really got things going for the Belleville Senators. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next week on episode 20 of Season 2 of the Belleville Sens podcast. For Brock Ormond and David Foote, don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for listening. Rebound loose in front of the net, picked up by Ostapchuk. Dropped off for Pilon. He'll pop that up. It sets in front. They score! What a play! A self alley-oop from Garrett Pilon. He puts it over the defender. It lands in the low slot, and he pops it home. It's 1-0 Senators.
Wow, we're all laughing up here. Like, this is unbelievable. Garrett Pilon just lobs it to himself. I don't think he meant to do it, but he ends up working out for him anyway because the puck is up landing.